On today's episode of How You Slice It from Nicky's Coal-Fired Pizza in Nashville, we talk about how they got started, going from fine dining to more of a pizzeria. They have a coal-fired pizza. It's an interesting style. They also do a ton of catering. They share how they get events for that. So this is a great episode. Let's get into it right now. All right, Tony and Caroline, thank you so much for hanging out with me on the podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
I appreciate you taking the time. I know you guys got a lot going on. So before we kind of get into it, give everybody who's listening or watching a little background about you guys. What's your business? Where is it located? Give us a little bit about the style of the business and all that good stuff.
You want me to start? So Nicky's Coal-Fired is a restaurant. We're in Nashville, Tennessee. We're in a neighborhood called The Nations, which is in West Nashville. Not too far from city center, probably about 5 miles out or so. It's very residential neighborhood, but is growing a lot. We really liked the space initially. That's why we kind of ended up in this neighborhood. It was a very cool, open, like industrial aesthetic. Prior to that, I'm from Chicago and worked in restaurants in Chicago, mainly fine dining, pastry and savory. I've kind of bounced both back and forth. Caroline has extended front of house experience. Do you want to talk about your?
Yeah, I've done a little bit of everything. I went to culinary school for a year. The vast majority of my experience is in front of house operations, but because I've owned a restaurant for almost 10 years now, I can work in the kitchen if I have to. Fortunately, knock on wood, those days are few and far between now. But if I have to fire up a pie, I can do it.
You haven't had to in a really long time.
Listen, let's please knock on wood. I don't want to jinx anything.
That is a good sign, though, that you haven't had to do it in a long time.
It is a good sign. Tony and I met working in fine dining restaurants in Chicago. 16 years 17 years ago, I think. We've been together a long time.
That's also a good thing.
Thank you. We moved to Nashville 12 years ago to pursue not music like everyone else who moves to Nashville, but to pursue opening our own business. And we opened our first restaurant, 51st Kitchen, in 2014. Unfortunately, we were just not in a great partnership there and had an opportunity to move just a couple blocks up the street to a different location, a much larger location, and open Nicky's. And this is our 9th year of business. We feel
that's
very
great.
fortunate
Congratulations.
to have made it this far. Thank you. And I was just having a conversation with somebody earlier this week, actually one of our team members, and saying how good it feels to be in year 9 and feel like we are still growing and have such a long way to go, or that we can go. As opposed to feeling stagnant in year 9, which I think would maybe be easy to do in another situation.
Yeah, that's like good. I mean, 9 years in business is, especially like halfway through that was COVID, right? So like they had to deal with all that. It wasn't like a regular 9 years of life.
Years, I will say.
Yes, yeah.
It hasn't been 9 easy years.
I was going to say 9 years. It feels like COVID happened 9 years ago.
It
feels like it happened
really
so long ago.
Yeah, it does feels a lot more removed from it. Yeah.
But describe your business. Like, what do you guys do? Because it's called Nicky's Coal-Fired Pizza. But before we got on the podcast, you're like, we're more of a restaurant than we are a pizzeria. So describe the business a little bit.
Yeah. So Nicky's Coal-Fired, it kind of spins off. So like Caroline said, we had opened a previous restaurant that was really fine dining, very small. But it kind of focused on like small plates and stuff like that. There's really only a few like entree size things. So we wanted
30-seat restaurant.
Yeah, 30 seats plus like the bar is very small. It was in an old house. So we wanted to do a restaurant that was like that. So it was also very focused. It's very seasonally inspired ingredients. We work with like a lot of local farmers, not just for vegetables, but for like meats and even cheeses and dairy and stuff like that. And so we kind of moved that model over to Nicky's. So when we first opened, and there was a big emphasis on pizza, there was probably more actual pizza selections on the menu when we opened. Our menu was a lot bigger. But basically we had some red pizzas, some white pizzas, and then, kind of still about the same amount of pastas. We have 4 or 5 pastas on the menu at any time. And then when we opened as well, we had more choices for entrees and things that were really specifically designed to be cooked in our coal-fired oven, which is unique, and it's we could talk about them more if you like later. But I really like coal fire. It's not as bright. It's not. I mean, it can be like very, very, very hot, but we run it a little cooler, and that would allow us to do things like roast veggies. Clams, we would do like steaks and stuff.
Whole
fish.
We were a
sausage.
lot more in that casual fine dining space.
Okay.
I would say was our category at that time when we first opened.
Is it still the same way, or is it different now?
With an emphasis
No.
on pizza. So we've sort of leaned more into it being like a neighborhood Italian restaurant.
Got it.
And there's still always kind of been like sort of red saucy Italian elements in it, but since we've opened, I mean, a lot of the things in the restaurant, the restaurant's named after my little brother. There's like family photos of, it's just like actual family Italian immigrants, like old, like black and white photos and stuff. And there's there's some art that we have done that's like sort of little Easter eggs that are, like scenes from kind of Italian American movies.
Actually, our favorite thing is we got a custom oil painting of the painting from Goodfellas that Joe Pesci's mom paints in Goodfellas. I don't know how familiar you are with the movie.
I can't think of it off the top of my head. I'm kind of scrolling through your Instagram and kind of see if I can see it now, but I know what you're talking about.
It's the guy with the white dog. So.
Yeah. In the boat? Is he in the boat?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's hanging on the wall.
So there's a lot of little things like that, but every time we've sort of leaned into a little more neighborhood Italian-y, a little more like red sauce. We didn't have meatballs when we started. I have access to a great meatball recipe. It's actually on the menu. It's Mama G's meatballs. It's my grandmother's recipe. My mom makes the same recipe. It's that recipe, and we added meatballs, and we're like, okay, we're like a restaurant that does meatballs now. And then like every time we sort of leaned into that a little more, we've actually gotten really, really, really good reception, and now we're kind of in this niche that's not, it's like kind of less fancy, less fussy. We still, source locally for, our pork and beef and veggies and stuff like that, but it's, I think it lets people perceive our restaurant as a little more casual and less of like, okay, this is somewhere, we'll go for your birthday, but not on a Wednesday night.
Right. Has that made business easier doing it that way? Because you get more people in the door more often?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yes, for so many reasons. I think that, when we opened, because our previous restaurant was literally 2 blocks down the street, and we had a lot of success with that restaurant, even though unfortunately our partnership didn't work out. The restaurant was doing great. We got excellent reception. So I think we were still leaning into that kind of more fine dining occasion restaurant type of space when we opened Nicky's. But going from a 30-seat restaurant to a 130-seat restaurant, especially one that serves pizza, we've both spent our entire careers working in restaurants, but what we didn't realize about opening a pizzeria, and I've talked to a lot of
or just even a restaurant that has pizza.
Restaurant that has pizza is everybody wants their exact pizza that they like. And if you deviate from the pizza that everybody has in their mind of this is the pizza that I like, people don't like that. We would get people who would get really bent out of shape if we, because we don't do pizza by the slice, or we didn't have a Supreme when we opened, or that sort of thing. So we really had to listen to our customers and adjust. We're also in a neighborhood that there's a lot of casual fine dining places in Nashville that do serve pizza, that do really well. City House, Folk, these kind of places. But we are in a very different neighborhood than those restaurants are. We are in a neighborhood that's really, really still growing and hasn't kind of hit that tipping point yet. So we did have to lean into being more neighborhoody than we initially thought when we first opened. And I'll say that we were already kind of going in that direction. And then when the pandemic hit when we really made that transition and kind of made that official leap into a more casual restaurant, and are now a counter service restaurant, actually.
Yeah, that was an opportunity. Everyone wanted really comfy, homey stuff during COVID. And so, we sort of leaned into that and moved to a counter service style just for like COVID restrictions at first. Right. But then it just ended up being a good model for us, and sort of like the way that the menu was aligning and kind of leaning into this kind of homey sort of things, comforting food, whether, even in the summertime, like homey and comforting doesn't have to be like really heavy chicken parm, stuff like that. It can be like a really good caprese salad with a really nice burrata, and people are like, "Oh, I love that in the summer," or just like a pie with a lot of like summer veggies in it, or like roasted peppers and some sort of special like sausage that we make for that, yeah. So that's kind of we. The pandemic is also just like the great excuse to like hit reset or like just like
yeah, we talked about that a lot.
Things, and no one could ever really ask you why. So like we just made some changes like during pandemic, because they'd ask you why, and you'd be like, well, obviously we have to do this for the pandemic,
right.
And then we just kind of kept stuff that worked. So
I think the pandemic, the only good thing that came out of that was like giving the businesses the ability to kind of change the things that they've always wanted to change but never really could because there was no reason to, and it gave you, all right, anything you want to redo or do over or start over or begin, like now's the time to do it.
Exactly
100%.
Right, yeah.
It's like, before the pandemic, if you make any major changes, excuse me, there's always like, oh, well, they're not doing well, or, oh, something's wrong. And, everything is so PR driven in this industry that you have to be really careful about how you frame those changes. But during the pandemic, it was honestly so freeing to be able to feel like we could really experiment with things and try new things without being judged for it, because everybody's doing terribly. Right. So,
it's true.
It's
so
not
true.
Like, it's not like there's a target on you for trying new stuff.
Where did you guys learn how to make pizza? I mean, obviously that's probably a big part of what you guys do. Maybe not the whole part, but a good sized portion of what you guys do. Where did you guys learn how to make pizza?
So I kind of been around pizza for a while, but like more in like a front of house setting. When I was in college, I worked at a couple like Italian restaurants that did pizza, or one I was just like a straight up like pizza place where I was like a server and a delivery driver. I went to college in Chicago, and I worked as a server both at Gino's East and Lou Malnati's, which are like really popular, like the most popular like deep dish places. But really, like, I didn't have like line experience building pizzas. I worked in an Italian restaurant that's gone in Chicago now called Folia, where it was like fine dining, but they were a place that had a wood-fired pizza. So I had some experience there. But I have extensive pastry experience in baking, like bread baking experience. And so also never used a coal-fired oven. All this sounds very foolish in retrospect.
As you're talking, I'm thinking to myself, like, why the heck would these guys open a coal-fired pizzeria? They don't sound like they have any experience. But
yeah, I mean, not all of it, and also it really took a while to like get to know that oven. Yeah. It's an Earthstone coal-fired oven, so it's completely analog. It's got no heat assist, it's got no gas connections, it's just like bricks inside a thing, and then air bellows, and you really gotta learn how to manipulate that oven. But once you do, I'm like steadfast, and I'm like, oh, that's like the best way to cook a pizza. But we also got that oven so big, so we're like, okay, we won't be cooking as many pizzas because we have all these other things that are getting fired in there, like clams in there, we got like Brussels sprouts in there, like Caroline said, we do like a whole fish, like all this, so we'd have these extra cast iron pans in there. So, and when we came up with the concept, then I really started to like dig into pizza recipes, actually work with some consultants, kind of get some recipes of our dough fine-tuned. I brought a sourdough starter. When we moved from Chicago to Nashville, this sourdough starter sat on the floor of the U-Haul in between us. So it's like
it's important. You can't let it.
Yeah,
you gotta give it a good spot.
His name is Bert. So Bert's like 16, 17-year-old starter now.
Wow.
So that was going to be a big part of the dough, and then just kind of like the other thing, like what I said is just like, as the menu just started to sort of shake out and people eventually just sort of leaned more into like pizza and pasta and became less interested in maybe some of like the, different like antipasti, kind of coal-fired things we were doing. It was still popular, but it started to be like more pizza, more pasta. And that was like a transition over, a few years too. So that just allowed me to just like keep dialing in until like I feel like at some point I'm just like, this is the pizza we make. So we didn't open up with like the exact pizza that we have now. The style is sort of refined. It's always been similar, but where we're at now, I feel like it's like the exact pizza that I want to make. And so, yeah, it's definitely a journey, an interesting journey.
I like that though. If you said to me, hey, I wasn't super experienced in pizza, we had a recipe, we started, and we still use that recipe, I'd have been like, I'm maybe a little suspect. I feel like if you really want to make a good product and a good pizza, it's something that it evolves over time. Like there's little changes that maybe your customers don't notice, but you do because you probably eat it all the time. And they're subtle.
And there's so many ways to do that, and we've done like everything, like every way to make subtle changes, just as far as just like different feeding schedules for the sourdough starter, things that are just like completely back, like just messing around with different brands of flour and flour with different like protein percentages and tweaking hydration percentages and tweaking even dough size and how long it ferments and how we roll it out or how we stretch it out. We tweaked oven temperature a little bit. Nothing like crazy. None of these have been just like, oh man, this like you went from like thin crust to deep dish like somehow like but it is like a bunch of little tweaks that ultimately are just like, to me, I'm just like, man, that's the pizza that I really want to make. I was actually just in Denver. Every year I'm a participating chef at the Great American Beer Fest, which they hold in Denver every year. And just the last couple years, they added pizza. They got like an uni, I think like sponsorship. And so they would put a couple pizza places and this lady, Pizzeria, they're in like right outside of San Francisco. The kind of person that goes like literally was just in Naples and won like third place with like one of like the pizza styles. It's just like a person who grew up in pizza places and stuff. And I was talking to her, I'm just like, it's always really intimidating this is like the second year in a row. And I'm just like, she was asking me questions about unis and I'm like, yeah, it sounds pretty stupid. I'm about to make 500 portions. I've literally never used an uni before. She's like, well, let me give you like a little crash course. Cause she's like, I use them for like little caterings and stuff. And so, over the past couple of years of doing this event, I've met her and we were chatting and I was just telling her, about stuff. I'm just like, there's so many different things. I think we're going to introduce a new style of pizza at Nicky's too, just like an additional one. But I'm just like, there's so much stuff. And she, teaches and does, seminars and all this. And what was the point of my story? Oh, but I was just like, but I'm like confident in saying I can do one style of pizza really, really well. That I think makes it like one of the best pizzas in Nashville. And it's like my preferred kind of like style. It's like a hybrid. It's a tweak on, somewhere in between New Haven and like not like a Neapolitan pizza at all. But I'm just like, we sort of made this.
It really is. It's its own unique style. It's and it's not like so crazy. It's not like it's
unidentifiable.
Yeah, it's not
something.
Like we created something that's so different, but just It's a thin crust, like a Neapolitan style, but it's really crispy, unlike a Neapolitan style. And the crust is not so puffy, but because it's coal-fired, you really, really taste the sourdough, like something that, I've loved eating pizza my whole life, but until we opened our restaurant and I was eating our pizza every day, now I eat other pizzas, and a lot of times I'm like, I noticed that the dough doesn't really taste like anything because I'm so used to eating that sourdough flavor.
Yeah, I'm looking at your Instagram right now as you guys are talking, and it looks like a cross between like what they call Neapolitan, which is not Neapolitan, but like kind of Neapolitan in like a New Haven style where it's like crispy, right? Because New Haven's like real thin, crispy, a little well done.
Go ahead.
No, go.
The feedback I got back from this person who I'm very intimidated by.
What's her name? What's her name?
Leah Skirto.
Oh yeah, I know her.
Yeah, who has like all this information. I'm just like, really, I'm not the most like I have done some consulting and will continue to do it, but I'm not like the go-to on all these things for pizza. I'm just like, really, I'm confident that I can make like one style in my restaurant really good. And she's like, that's great. That's actually what you should focus on. I'm like, great. So.
You are such a good baker, though. Like I have to say, like even before we started making pizza, like I will give you a shout out and say that like Tony's always made just like amazing breads. Our focaccia is actually a signature item on our menu. It's one of our appetizers. It's something we've had on since day one. It's really, really popular and it's so delicious. We bake it in the oven like before we actually start the oven for the day. So like kind of, it's still what, 400, 500 degrees
Oh
overnight?
no, between like it's a fun thing about that oven too. Like I said, it's so analog. It can be one morning you could come in and it's 580. One morning you could come in, it could be 740. It just kind of depends how busy it was the night before, who built the oven, how well they maintain the coals throughout the service. If they're done and there's no heat to sort of go through the night, and then that's just like an extra wrinkle, like in the morning where my people have to come in. They start proofing focaccia, and then first, like besides, because it takes a while, and then the very next thing they do is go look at the temperature of the oven and temp the deck and decide, do we have to open the doors for a while? Are we baking on the deck? Are we flipping a pan over and baking on that? Is it going to be too hot? Is it too cold? Is it, so there's lots of little tweaks, and that's very indicative of like a live fire oven anyway. All those kind of little measurements are being made throughout the night as we're making our pizzas as well. Different hot spots in the oven. We have 2 coal beds. We keep one smaller, one hotter, so the pizzas kind of move towards the hot one, so we can finish them. And there's just like a 100 little calculations going on all the time.
I have to say, I've talked to a lot of pizza people and been to a lot of pizza shops. The best pizzas that I've ever had generally come from people who started as bread makers. Mm-hmm. And had they didn't start by being in the pizza business. They started because they either loved making bread or they had some sort of restaurant where they were the person who made the bread, and then that transitioned into them making dough and pizza. And it's usually some of the best pizza that I've ever had. It comes from that transition, not necessarily someone who just I want to make pizza and they just go to a book and they look at a pizza dough.
Sure. Yeah, you have to have some sort of knowledge. Like I said, I did pastry for the last job. Right before we moved to Nashville, I was at a restaurant. The restaurant we met at is called MK. It's closed now, but it was a fine dining restaurant. It's open for 18 years or so, and it's a pastry chef there for 4.5 years and did, everything from gelato to obviously composed desserts and bread and stuff like that, and have baked bread in previous restaurants, and have also just kind of done it on my own.
Yeah.
A lot. So yeah, having a good idea of what's going on with just doughs in general, and knowing what a baker's percentage is right out of the gate,
very
really,
helpful.
Really helps. Yeah. So.
Yeah. What do you guys love about the pizza business versus what do you not love about the pizza business?
That's a great question. I actually don't think anybody's ever asked us that before.
That is true. No one's. I love eating pizza when I'm at the restaurant.
I do
love.
That's
great.
I
That's
am not
bonus.
sick of eating our pizza, surprisingly.
Yeah, I don't really get tired of it. I like how, seemingly, we already sort of alluded to, how seemingly simplistic it is, even with things that are just just doing a margarita pizza, but all the little touches that go into it, as far as how I said, we've adjusted sourdough feeding schedules, we've adjusted hydration, we've adjusted oven temp and how much coal we use, and now we kind of have all these standardized things, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a standard. Who built the oven that day? Were they in the weeds and they were focusing on slicing pepperoni and then forgot to put coal on at a certain point when they should have, so now the oven has started too cold, or there's all these little adjustments you got to make. And then as far as all the other little things too that I'm sure people think about, but it's just tasting different tomato brands. How much salt do we put in the tomatoes? What how thick we're stretching the dough. The kind of cheese we do, we do a blend of in house of low moisture mozz and fresh mozz, because I don't want just that Chicago tavern style where it's just the whole thing gets brown and crusty, but I also just don't like just all fresh mozzarella. The olive oil that we finish with, where does it sit for a second when it comes out of the oven? All the little things you have to think about a million times to really get to the final product is having done pastry as much as I've done, that's kind of the nerd out shit, and I like that about pizzas. There's the opportunity to do a lot of nerding out. So
what do you hate?
What do I hate? That wish I could charge as much for a pizza as I charge for a steak.
Right? I think,
Yeah.
I totally think that a lot of people are in that boat too. People have this perception that Even though all the stuff that we've happened to us in the last few years, inflation, COVID, like people are like, oh, pizza should cost $10 or $12.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not the reality of what
Right.
happens when you're in a restaurant.
No, on a busy night, I got 3 guys just making pizzas, and it took 2 people in the morning to do the doughs for it. And the 3 guys, they just didn't roll up when the restaurant opened and started making pizzas. They prepped the whole station and all that. Whereas kind of like other restaurant models where like I've worked at and stuff, it's like you got one guy in the grill, and he's got 10 steaks on there. And those are like $80, $80,
Right.
instead of like my 3 people to make $16 pizzas one at a time by hand.
That tastes good too. Like in that, like it's not Domino's crap pizza.
That have so many variables, like you
Right.
said, like, oh, is it too charred? Is it cooked enough? Are the toppings evenly distributed? Did we, yeah, I think I would say the same thing. I'm the business manager, so I am the person who looks at and responds to reviews.
Google
and
or
the thing
Google
that
reviews.
like just really, it's like, I don't take it personally, but like if anything really gets to me, it's when people say it's overpriced, because
What do you guys charge for a pizza?
between 16 and 23, depending on the pizza.
And what size are they?
There's
13.
13 inches.
So that's like if for a restaurant sit-down place, right? You guys don't do delivery?
We do delivery through like Grubhub, Uber
Got
Eats,
it.
all of that.
But most people think of you as a go-to restaurant.
Yeah, we're a dine-in place.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's what you got to charge if someone's going to sit down in a building with lights and electricity and wait staff.
And we use
all this
nice
stuff.
ingredients.
Yeah.
We don't use crap. And we also pay our employees well. We don't pay them as much as I would like to. I would like to be able to pay everybody so much more, but we're a mom and pop business, and we really do our best to create a really equitable work environment where we can take care of our people, and just so much that goes into it. So when you get that overpriced comment, that's the one that always is so hard, because you can't really explain to a customer, like, I'm not going to be the asshole who goes on Yelp and is like, well, let me break it down for you. I just,
Right.
what's that going to do? So
Want me to do it for you? I'll do it for you.
please.
Thank you.
Yes. So that's tough. It's like, there's a difference between expensive and overpriced. And I completely appreciate that we are not an everyday place for every person out there. There's been so many times in my life when I don't have the budget to dine at my own restaurant. I got a $5 hot and ready from Little Caesars kind of budget, and that's fine. But it doesn't mean that we're overpriced. So.
Yeah, and I think you got to pay for. I guess it would be like if someone says you're overpriced and the quality wasn't there. It didn't sound like you were kind of putting in the quality ingredients or the time to make a good product.
Yeah.
But I think people have to understand, like, pizza is not a cheap product. Just because certain places sell it for a cheap price doesn't mean like the majority of people that are making great pizza can charge that price. It's just not possible.
Right.
Because of the ingredients alone cost more than most people, like Domino's, Papa John's, what are some other, Pizza Hut, like they don't use good ingredients. They
That
use
stuff's made in a
mass-produced
factory.
ingredients. Yeah.
It's literally made in a factory.
Yeah, and they can't, first of all, as an independent, you can't produce it at the scale they can, and you don't have the buying power that they can. And it's like not the same ingredients. And like, you want to put that stuff in your body for $10, go for it.
Sure.
But most people do not.
You'll pay for it later.
Exactly. Like, you're
And
not going
we
to feel
try-
so great.
We really do try to do things to extend, different pricing for our customers. We do a happy hour every day where we have, certain pizzas discounted. We do, our most popular day of the week is $10 Tuesday. We do all of our pizzas for $10 on Tuesday. Which I think it's a great value. And then we do like a family night on Mondays. Kids eat free. We do kids pizzas for free
Like
on
little,
Mondays.
mini kids pizza.
That's great.
So we really do try to be accessible to everyone. But, we can only do so much and keep the lights
See more of the
on.
college kids on Tuesday.
Yeah.
That's the college kids
Yeah.
budget. So, $10 we're in.
That's
Yeah.
great. So that's one thing that is going to be hard for the whole industry to kind of fight, is that as prices increase, we need to change that perception. But the perception of pizza doesn't seem to change as fast as the increase in prices do.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the perception is starting to change. I think there are so many places that are, bringing pizza kind of into a different light. It's not just the Papa John's, Pizza Hut that we all, corner spot with a slice that we grew up eating, which, you know, there's a place for that, but so many, you know, more fine dining places are incorporating pizza into their menus. And I think that there's a lot more appreciation for pizza now in the culture, kind of for more and more people than there used to be. A huge part of our business is private events, and we do a lot of weddings, rehearsal dinners, that sort of thing. And we
You
have a lot
serve
of
pizza
people
there, or like more other stuff too?
we do. We serve
Really?
pizza. Now, we do have other things available, but I have a hard time thinking of any event that we do, even like the fanciest wedding, where people don't get pizza.
They normally.
That's
get
great. That's a
pizza.
good sign.
Yeah. And a lot of people seek us out because they love pizza and they want pizza served at their special event, which is really cool. It's a nice feeling that people want pizza to be a
It's
part
actually
of it.
one of the more popular things is when people have a reception, is like, you know, so we'll do like, usually if it's big, it'll be like buffet style, or if it can even still be big and be seated, and we'll kind of do like family style and stuff. But a lot of people, there's that trend of like, after they eat, you do the dancing or like the toasts and all the things, and then the bar is open, the DJ's going, and then after like an hour and a half of everyone drinking and stuff, they're like, okay, we want pizzas up at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
That's sort of like the ideal, you know,
Yeah,
like that
we
like
do a lot of
snack.
that
Yeah,
late
we
night
do.
pizza.
Yeah.
Wait,
And it really-
at your restaurant, or are you guys bringing the pizza to the place, a different place?
No, at our restaurant. So
Oh, that's
we
awesome.
do a major part of our revenue is private events. We actually added a private event space to our restaurant earlier this year. A space became available in our building, and we took it over just because we were doing so many private events in the
That's
restaurant. That we felt like we were kind of starting to alienate customers a little bit. And it's been really great for us because we are in such a growing neighborhood. We just don't have the day-to-day foot traffic that some other parts of Nashville have. Our neighborhood is, you'll see when you're in Nashville, that our neighborhood is really still not there yet, the way some other places are. So private events has really been what's kept us going, and is now going to account for maybe 25+% of our revenue this year.
That's great too. Plus, it's probably way easier to manage too, because you know ahead of time exactly how many
So much
people, what you
easier.
need for product, ingredients. Like, if price is
Yeah.
already set, there's no like wondering.
Yeah. So yeah, we do a lot of events actually in the restaurant, and we do catering as well, but we actually don't cater pizzas.
Really?
Just
Unless someone is
because
really adamant about it, because we're just like, you know, it's going to be
cold.
and
Yeah, I guess
we
that's
don't
true.
have a way to heat it up, you know.
Yeah.
We do catering, and you know, I bring everything in a hot box, set it up in a little steam table with the sternos, you know, and you got your, you know, pan of baked ziti and tray of meatballs and stuff like that. I'm like, if you get pizzas, they're going to be cold, soggy.
You need to get a couple of uni ovens. There you go. Then you can have some more practice with
Yeah,
the uni
yeah.
ovens.
Yeah, maybe.
Exactly.
Make them on site.
Yes.
There's so many people doing that nowadays with the unis or the Gazi, even another big brand
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
mobile pizza ovens. But
Like
like you said,
for like
it's hard.
15 pizzas or so. Then they kind of start to. So at the event at the Great American Beer Fest, we were supposed to do, and I mean, I was able to do it. You're supposed to have. So we
Did you
had
do like 500 pizzas?
no, like 500 like portions.
Oh,
They're pizzas that are cut into 16s, because it's just like, you know, it's like a tasting. You know, when
Yeah.
you go to like an event, and so there was like a couple dozen. I can't remember exactly how many chefs were paired with breweries, and it's like a separate special part of the event. You got to pay extra ticket to get to. So, you know, we had like 2 bites, and one was paired with each beer from this thing. But I mean, yeah, like the doors open to the event at 5:30, and it's hard for those ovens to keep up. I mean, I made pizzas for 3.5 hours straight each Thursday and Friday, and you're just cranking it in between pizzas, trying to get the
floor
the
up.
back
Yeah,
up, and
the
yeah.
floor cools off so quick. I
not-
have people at my house, and I have an uni and a Gazi, and
Yeah.
I actually had the founder of Uni on the podcast. We've talked.
Oh, nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
He
I
sent
think-
me so their new oven is Dakota. He's gonna kill me. I forgot the name of it. I think it's the biggest one they have. It does a 20-inch pizza. He sent
wow.
me one. I haven't opened. It's in a box over there. I haven't even opened it yet. But it's supposedly that in that oven, it solved that problem of the floor cooling off too quick.
Cool.
Well, I believe, and so again, talking to Leah, who knows everything about pizza that I don't know, she's like, these are meant for like a Neapolitan pizza
Yeah.
because those little things get so hot. But then again, if you're doing like so many in a row, it just eventually it can't keep up. But I sort of figured out over the last couple ones, I've dialed the dough down, so it's kind of like a drier dough.
Oh, okay.
So the bottom does crisp it, so you do run the risk of burning the hell out of the bottom. So, but I
Versus
feel like
vice versa, right? Usually those ovens cook the top quicker.
you cook the top quicker and not. And so I've had more luck. Like if I do have to do it like a bunch, I kind of figured that out like day 2 last year. That I'm just like, all right, if I'm trying to make like 45 pizzas and as fast as I can make it in these little ovens, and I'm got one in and got the other one heating, and then take that out, turn it back up, and then the dough is a little, and I pressed it into full semolina. Not even like semola, just like a fine, and it kind of helps create this little crust on the bottom, and you're able to better get a crispy pizza.
Oh, that's a good tip.
Yeah, so
I like that. That's my problem with those ovens is like you make a couple, and by the time you're at the third or fourth one, it's not hot enough.
Right.
And if you're
You
like
need
if you
that
have
style.
if you have an event, right, or people over, like one person's eating their whole pizza and the other person's still waiting. Like, I'm sorry, the oven's got to heat up a little bit. You got to wait 20 minutes for your pizza.
Yeah.
Not too happy about that. This is great. So can I ask you a question? Because who does your Instagram? Because you guys do a really good job with photos and
I
videos.
do it.
Sure.
Thank
You really?
you.
Yeah, you do good.
Yes.
Which is hard. Not a lot of people can do it really well. And I think you could do a good job of so I've looked at a lot of pizza shop Instagrams, and it's like they either don't do anything, which majority don't do anything, or it's like one of the other of too many. It's too many just pizza and not enough like personality, or too much personality. And you go to the Instagram page, you're like, is this even a pizza place or is this like a dance hall? And like you can't tell what it is. So you do a good job.
There was a pizza place that I was trying to look at, and I was like, oh, I've never heard of this place. Let me look at their pizzas. And I went to their Instagram, and it's like just all pictures of people. And I'm like, I just want to see the pizza.
Exactly. Like that's why I think you do a good job of mixing it up, like showing the personality of the
thank you.
business.
I really appreciate that. We try to, we try to keep a consistent voice.
I feel like there's a good amount of like we're showing like cocktails and stuff.
Yeah.
And we have like a big spritz menu. We try to offer like a really nice bar program.
But I've also like figured out over the years like what gets the most engagement and what doesn't. And oddly enough, the things that get the least engagement for us is pictures of alcohol and cocktails. And then pizza is a toss-up. Pasta always gets more engagement than pizza for whatever reason. And I really hate this, but the thing that gets the most engagement is when Tony and I, which we very, very rarely do, post a picture of ourselves.
Why do you hate that?
I don't like taking my picture. I like to be the behind the scenes person.
Yeah.
Like I love for Tony to be front and center. I like to be behind the scenes. But you just got to do it sometimes, we'll post a picture of us and hey guys, it's Tony and Caroline.
Yeah.
Here's a message from us, whatever. And that always gets the most
menu,
engagement.
new fall menu.
Yeah.
I like it. I like that I can go to your Instagram and see what the business is. Like I know you guys are more of a restaurant because I can see that in pictures. You have alcohol, but I also can see things I would want to order, which is kind of the point of Instagram, right?
Oh, cool. Thank you. I really appreciate that feedback. I don't get to post as much as I would like, but I also feel like Meta is constantly changing the algorithm.
Totally.
And I feel like I've heard lately that you are supposed to be posting less. Like a couple years ago, you were supposed to post every single day, and now they're saying post 3 times a week, or it's just it's really kind of hard to keep up.
It is. It's ever changing, right? Like as soon as you think, first of all, just like in business, you never really have it figured out. You're just figuring it out at the moment, and then it's going to change in a couple weeks. Same thing with Instagram.
Yeah.
It's always kind of like a never changing thing. Yeah.
They actually don't want you to figure it out.
I know they don't.
That's probably true.
They want you to pay for ads.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's how they make their money. But speaking of Instagram, on Instagram, you guys are Nicky's Nashville on Instagram. What's your website?
NickysNashville.com.
NICKYS. People are always like, is it with an I? I'm like, it's with a Y.
That's you guys on just Instagram and Facebook, or do you do TikTok or anything like that?
We have a TikTok page, but we typically only post on TikTok during the holiday season. So just number one, because I just can't keep up. And we get a lot of content creators who make TikToks of us during the holiday season.
Oh, that's good.
Easy for me to repost because every year between Thanksgiving and Christmas, we do an event at the restaurant called St. Nicky's.
Okay.
And we just deck out the entire restaurant. I mean, absolutely crazy.
Like
Over the top Christmas decorations.
an uncomfortable amount of lights. Like
Yeah.
it's like so much decoration, and
It's bonkers.
the word is unhinged. We want it to look unhinged when you walk in.
Wait, is this
you're
it?
like, oh
I'm gonna
my
pull up
God.
your Instagram right here. Is
Yeah.
this it? Is like this a photo of it?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's one.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So
You guys are basically Buddy the Elf of the pizza industry.
Yes.
we are. Yeah.
I like that. I
So
like it.
It's been great for us. This will be our 4th year of St. Nicky's that we're coming up on. We're revamping. We're doing a whole new theme this year. But yeah, that's kind of the only time we post on TikTok, just because I don't know. I'm in my 40s. I can't. I have so much to do. I can't learn how to make TikToks. So if a young person wants to come in and make a TikTok of St. Nicky's, I'm happy to repost it.
You'll give them a free pizza in exchange for like a week or two worth of TikToks.
Exactly.
There you go. That's a good
Exactly.
exchange
I'm
right there.
always trying to get my young employees. I'm like, don't you guys want to make TikToks? And I don't know. It's hard to do. So
Oh,
That
man,
is a part of actually like our marketing though around is we work with a PR firm during those holidays, like starting now, like starting in October.
Yeah.
And they start to identify like influencers and not just necessarily in food. Sometimes it's like
lifestyle people.
Yeah.
or health and fitness or even like business, like whatever, but we just like get them all to Nicky's for like a preview event, kind of like day one that the lights are up and they
That's
just
smart.
get like all the drinks for free, and they're all like super holiday themed cocktails, and some of the like we turn our one pasta that we always have on the menu is cavatelli bolognese, and we sub out the cavatelli for green Christmas tree shaped pasta.
Okay.
And just like all these influencers, and then for like a week, it's just like every TikTok is Nicky's Christmas stuff.
That's very smart.
So it does help us. So
Yeah, that's a great idea. So you're doing things that are kind of made for Instagram, TikTok, so that and then they take photos of them. Share. That's really smart.
Thank you. Yeah.
I love that.
I shout out to Brand House, our PR firm, who makes it happen for us every year.
yeah. I don't
Is
know.
it worth having
I
a
couldn't-
brand manager, like a brand PR manager like that?
For us,
We can cut this part out if you don't,
season,
or we'll,
yes.
For events,
we won't let
yeah.
them
And
listen to
for
this part if it's
certain
not.
I think that PR is so valuable for certain things. I think for openings, I would always recommend, if somebody was asking my opinion, I would always recommend opening with PR if you have the budget for it. I think it's really important. And I actually think it's something that's important to find the budget for if you don't have it. And then I think around certain things, like around these events, it's great for us. When we opened our events venue space, we had PR on retainer for 6 months for that launch. And we also, our PR firm that we work with, we have been with for years, and they do a phenomenal job with us. So not every PR firm is worth the money, in my opinion, but ours.
Got to do some homework, but a good one can really get the press releases out there, get the right people in there, get you whatever, TV spot, radio spot, the things that can move the needle when you're trying to focus on something specific, as opposed to just having someone on retainer all the time. Big restaurant groups can do that, and that's great, but usually for independent operators, it's worth it if you have like an agenda, or like one goal,
Yeah, I like that. It's like you could have the best pizza in the world, but if nobody knows about it, it's going to be hard to sell it.
Exactly.
True.
So
Yeah. And we found too that when we opened, I think we opened with a strategy of national PR, just because that's what we were used to. Coming from the fine dining world, those were kind of always the goals of places that we had worked before. And that's kind of how we thought it was supposed to go. But the PR team that we work with now, when we started with them, they're like, hey, we just need to focus on local PR. Let's, kind of, if national comes, great, but like, national's not going to do anything for us.
Yeah, like when we did open, we were like, we had like a little thing in like Food and Wine magazine. I'm just
wow.
It's like one page. It's in the middle of one magazine, 1 month, and that's not to say like I would love to be in Food and Wine magazine every month, but it just moves the needle more if it's kind of like, especially what we're trying to do. If we were a Michelin-starred place where people are coming from out of town to eat, or they, super foodies with a lot of money can, they're like, oh, well, this place is in Food and Wine all the time, or this place is in Bon Appetit all the time, or this guy's got a James Beard nomination or whatever. That's the kind of thing that moves the needle for that. And like Caroline said, we did sort of adjust our mindset with PR, because we came from fine dining, and that was sort of, how you did that. You're just like, you throw it up there and it trickles down.
Right.
Like the local people will have to write about you because you're in all these other ones, where it's really that you just got to sort of focus. Or for us, that can work for other people, but for us currently with the kind of restaurant we have, it kind of is more. It's better to focus on more like influencers and local and stuff like that. That moves the needle more for us.
I like that. So your website is Nicky's Nashville. Nicky's with a Y. We'll link up your Facebook, your Instagram. Tony, Caroline, I appreciate you guys joining me on the podcast. Don't leave yet. But this is great.
Thank you for having us. We really appreciate it.
Super fun.
After I recorded this episode, I actually got the chance to go down and visit Nicky's Coal-Fired Pizza. Sadly, they weren't there, but their team was. And Jeffrey showed me around the restaurant, showed me the pizzeria, let me record a whole bunch of videos, which we'll try to overlay on this video you're watching right now. But it was amazing to see that the team they put in place. They went from fine dining to a pizzeria, coal-fired oven. The place was amazing. It was immaculate. They also showed me the event space that they just took over. And they also do the Christmas light overlay where the whole staff comes in, they decorate the whole place out in Christmas lights, and it's an entire event, and they love it. And it does a great thing for the community where they all come in. They like to see the Christmas lights. It's just this whole big thing. Great team over there. Congratulations for the great business. I hope you enjoyed this podcast episode. And if you have a story that you want us to tell here on How You Slice It or on the YouTube channel, message us. Leave a comment below. Email us. Go over to theslice.com and leave a comment on the blog and all of that great stuff. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.